Hello, this is Jeffrey Scott. Welcome to the Ultimate Landscape CEO podcast. This is a special podcast. It's a recording of a webinar that we did recently on the power of a peer group, the life-changing power of belonging to and being an active member of a peer group. I'm joined by Sean Baxter, who's a longtime client of mine, a member of a peer group, and now an associate helping run our peer groups. And together, we really explore the different features and benefits. Namely, we do the following. First, I outline on this recording 5 common pain points that I see of landscape owners, landscape business owners, and then we get into how we solve those pain points by outlining the 8 unique features and benefits of our Leaders Edge peer groups. Some of the benefits are more general. They're in other groups as well, and some are very unique to us. You're going to enjoy the stories that Sean shares. He gives some practical examples as what he learned and how he got value as a member back in the day and very recently. And you'll learn from his experiences things you can apply to your business and your thought process now, even without joining a peer group. So there's some good takeaways here on this podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. One more thing. It's a little choppy initially in this recording, and then it smooths right out. So don't get distracted by that. You'll find a very good presentation here. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Scott. We are here for webinar and also simul podcast, The Power of the Peer Group. I'm very excited to give this presentation. And I have a special guest, Sean Baxter, that I will introduce in a bit. Sean is the owner president of Lawn and Landscape Solutions in Kansas or Missouri. I always forget which side of the line Sean's on. He'll tell us. And Sean's been a long-time member of our peer group, so he has a lot of insider information to share. And he's recently become an associate at Jeffrey Scott Consulting. So sitting on both sides here, really a lot of expertise to share. So let's jump right into this. There are very few things in life that decisions you make that have sort of a long-term impact on your life. I would say there's like 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 decisions you make in your entire lifetime that have that long-term impact, right? Who you get married to, what job you take or what job you quit, maybe a city you move to, just very few that really have the large ripple effect. And joining a peer group, I have been told over and over and over again by our clients, has become one of those momentous decisions for our members. They call it life changing. And so what we're talking about here today, I think you're going to find life changing for you if this is something that you decide to do. Let me tell you why I started running these peer groups, right? My own personal story. When I was running my landscape business for my family, I needed an outlet. And so I joined what's now called Vistage. Some of you may have heard of it. And it was a peer group for business owners in a local community, and the other members were other local business owners. We met once a month. It was very helpful. It really gave me a place to, to share my most important decisions and frustrations and challenges. But what I found was this local community didn't really understand the complexity of the landscape business. The landscape industry, the landscape business, our companies are very complex, a lot of moving parts, diverse people issues, right? You could have somebody coming in from Mexico without any education. You could have a master's in business administration, master's in landscape design, landscape architecture in your business. So a real wide array of people issues. And the financial benchmarks that were important to me, I really couldn't get satisfaction from my local peer group, from my Vistage peer group. And so I decided, there's like Shark Tank. There's got to be a better way. And so that's when I decided to form the Leaders Edge peer group that we now run. And it really tackled and addressed all the weaknesses I had in my old peer group, right? The benchmarking we do, everything is with companies that are all experiencing the same issues. And so it allowed the sharing to just go to that much, much higher level where people really could understand what I was going through emotionally, but also financially, physically, and, literally from a business standpoint. So that's why I started the Leaders Edge. What I found is from people that have joined over the years that there's really 5 main pain points why people join. And you may have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe all 5 of these, but some people, their pain point, some owners, is that they're just feeling overworked, working like a dog, where the job, they become a slave to the company. And instead of owning a business, they feel like they're owned by the business. So that's pain point number 1. Pain point number 2, underpaid. They get into business because it's the American dream, but then they end up making, for many people, less than if they had just worked for their competitor down the street, right? They had just gotten a job in the open market. And then as you run your own business, you realize, there's these risks. I'm borrowing money. So I'm earning less money. I'm borrowing money. I'm not getting a great ROI. So that's a second pain point. The third pain point is slow growth. Many people, when they join, they've either hit a plateau and they can't get beyond it, or the growth is slow and they're impatient, right? We tend to be ambitious people. We want to go faster. And so they're looking to speed up that growth. The fourth pain point I see is lonely at the top. You've got to make all the decisions yourself, deal with all the pain yourself. You feel beat up. You're wondering if there's a better way. You'd like to ask your employees help, but you can't ask their opinion on everything, and obviously not the really big decisions. And so it is lonely running a business, and a peer group really is a way to help you realize you're not alone. We're all having the same issues. And Sean will share some of this as we get into some of the examples. And lastly, just a general frustration. That's the fifth pain point I see. You're ambitious, you've got big dreams, and with the right help and guidance, you can get there faster and more efficiently. So those are the main pain points I see. What I'd like to do right now is make a little bit of a shift. I'm going to call Sean into the action here in a second. And we're going to talk through the 8 features/benefits of a peer group community. And many of these might be generic to other people's peer groups, and some are definitely unique to how we run. And we're going to take 3-4 minutes and talk through each feature and benefit. After that, we'll open it up for some Q&A here on the webinar. And then after that, we're going to set up breakout rooms where we're going to put you into groups of small groups where you can chat about your experiences with peer groups. You can ask more personal questions. I've got a few people we'll put into those breakout rooms that will be there to facilitate and answer your questions. And so with that, let's shift to talking about these 8 features and benefits. Let me now introduce Sean Baxter. Sean, I gave you a quick intro up front. Do you want to take a minute and a half and give us a more refined introduction of yourself?
Sure. My name is Sean Baxter. I started my landscape business in 2001 as a 19-year-old kid. I had previously very little experience in the green industry outside of working on the retail side or the nursery side of the business. And the nursery I worked for didn't provide landscape services. And so I met all these homeowners and even delivered plants to their homes, and they didn't have anybody to plant them. So I turned that into a business and have been going 22 years strong now. We are located in Overland Park, Kansas, which is a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri. So I do work on both sides of the state line, as Kansas City is both half in Kansas and half in Missouri. We're a residential firm. We do mostly design and build and maintenance for our residential clients. And as I said before, we joined Jeffrey Scott Peer Groups 11 years ago. So about halfway through our business's total tenure, we've been involved in the peer group community. Pretty recently, I've started to help facilitate peer groups, having been a member of one and had the power of the peer group kind of explode my business forward. I wanted to be able to take that experience and share it with as many people as I can, and try to lift as many companies within the industry up as I possibly can. Can be fun and rewarding and profitable with just a little bit of help from your peers.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean. And Sean's being humble. His business has really done quite excellent. And Sean he's learned all the systems we use, helped even refine the systems. He's excellent at financials as well as the people part. What I like, Sean, about you is, and we did a podcast on your business a few months back, just your people first approach. A lot of people talk that way, Sean, but I like how you live and promote the people first agenda. And as a shout out to what you've done, when everybody was scrambling for employees, you've basically been turning employees away this past, even in the peak of the pandemic landscape boom, you turning away employees because you've developed such a great destination company environment at your firm. So
indeed, the last 3 years, the pressure's been on our sales team, not on our production team, to keep everybody that we have on our staff going to the level that they want to go, which for most of them is 60 plus hours a week. We've definitely had no trouble staffing. And a lot of it has to do with our core focus, and the mission of our business is to build people up. And, we happen to landscape in the act of building people up, but what we really focus on is trying to become an organization where people can enter our business with little to no skill in the trade, and either exit our business or stay with a ton of skill. And that goes beyond just landscape and starts to delve into their personal lives as well. And certainly what the landscape trade has afforded me, we're trying to pass on to as many people internally as we can.
Yeah, excellent. So let's jump right into this. We're going to explore 8 features and benefits of our Leaders Edge peer group community. And the first one really is an overarching one of gaining clarity. You gain clarity by being in a structured environment in a peer group where you're sharing your experiences, and other people are sharing their experiences. And as adults, we really learn by talking and explaining. You don't learn as much by book reading, right? Having a book and just reading through a book, although that is one way to learn. But, and you don't just learn by listening and reflecting, although that's a secondary, very important way to learn. But when you're able to talk through your issues, you get real clarity when you can do it in a really honest, open, emotionally open, as well as factually open way. And what I've just seen, I've seen light bulb after light bulb after light bulb go off for our members when they can do this. So Sean, just to give us a quick share with the people here, how being a member of the group helped you gain clarity in your business.
Well, I don't think there was a watershed moment where I had one light bulb go off, but rather multiple light bulbs go off through the course of the travels that I've had. So when you leave the environment and that you're in every day and the people that you're with, and you go to someone else's environment and start hearing from their employees or looking at their systems, just getting on a plane in the spring and leaving the chaos and going into someone else's world can gain so much clarity. The things you have to do to prepare to travel, the things that you have to do to both at home and at work to be away for a few days is kind of a good indicator of what you're doing all day, every day, and what you spend your time. And those phone calls that you get when you're away are a great indication of what support your people actually need when you're there, that doesn't revolve around you. And so I've had so many moments of clarity leaving my business, going to someone else's. The other side of that is listening to their employees talk and give feedback on their employer, because you can put yourself in their shoes really quickly and you wonder, oh, what would my employees say about me and our systems and the way we do things? And is that true? Is that really happening everywhere? And so it forces you to ask questions of yourself and get questions from your staff that I think create a ton of clarity. And it's so eye-opening to see. The other thing I think that gives you peace about it is you leave your town and you think so many things are unique to you and your city and what you're about. And then you go somewhere else and you realize, okay, maybe it's a different zone. So they got different plants or they have a little different style or flair. But in reality, everywhere in the US, all the contractors in the landscape industry have the same struggles. You're not alone. Any problem that you're facing is probably not that unique. And all you got to do is ask, and you can get clarity on just about anything.
Excellent. Excellent. Hey, appreciate you sharing. Sean is talking about the trip we make twice a year to visit one of the members' facilities. That's the bedrock of how our groups run. And then we do a lot more than that, but those two retreats twice a year form, they're kind of the core pillars of our peer group. And so, which leads me to feature number 2, or benefit number 2, the behind the scenes tour. And Sean started talking about it briefly, but really what happens is in these twice a year retreats, one of the members is hosting it. And so part of the meeting is about their company, not the whole meeting, but just a part of it where we meet their team, we learn their systems, we dig into their best practices, we dig into their numbers, we learn from their leadership team, or if it's a smaller company, their foremen or supervisors, whatever it is. We learn from the 4 or 5 direct reports what's working and what's not working in their business. And you learn from visiting another company, both what they're doing better, right? Hey, we're going to rob and duplicate. But you also learn where you see them maybe doing worse than you. And it's like, I'm not so bad. Or maybe they share a mistake that they learned along the way. Ooh, cautionary tale. Oh, I better not make that same mistake. So it's a very tactical, hands-on way of learning. I think as contractors, we need that, right? We can't just do book learning, although we do read at least 2 books a year together and sometimes 3, whether it's Audible or not. But we always want to keep our intellect growing. But this tactical learning is, I think, the most, tangible and relevant. So, Sean, can you share with the group one of the visits you made to someone else's facility that had a big impact on you?
Well, there are so many, but one that stands out in my head is a trip to Ohio 7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. And I had heard so much in previous meetings, but never been there, about this particular facility and how beautiful it was, and how it wasn't just designed to be a shop, but it was actually a trial garden for everything that they are doing in their customers' gardens. And so I get there and, from the architecture of the building, kind of looking like an old barn, to the grounds being perfectly manicured and landscaped the way that we would expect a client's facility to be, or home to be, their facility was. And so it was so inspiring for me to see that you could not only build a shop that's functional, but is also very beautiful, and the impact that that has on their employees, the respect that they get from the community, and just sort of how it built their overall brand by how they valued their space. And it was really eye-opening for me. And it had a huge impact when we were fortunate enough to be able to build our facility, which we're right in the middle of, to leave investment open for beauty and not just function. I don't think that that's something that I would have been naturally drawn to do or financially committed to do had I not gotten outside and looked at the value of what that created beyond just the oohs and ahs of the curb appeal, but what it did for the people who work there and the respect they have for their employer and what they do. Not to mention the countless training opportunities that that provides their staff on their own grounds.
And so how did that impact you, Sean, when you built your brand new facility?
We're landscaping every square inch of it. And we're going to have a experience, a big patio and a fireplace and a space that we can hang out outside, and kind of demonstrates all the things that we do, which will both be for training and for beauty. And ultimately, hopefully, it kind of sends a message to those applicants when they show up at your door. Okay, this place is for real. They're really into landscaping. This place looks good. This is the place I want to work.
Excellent. Thanks. Like you said, you visit so many different facilities. You rob and duplicate from everybody, don't you?
Absolutely.
So that's the second feature. Let's talk about the third and fourth feature. I'm going to sort of combine them here a bit. So the third feature / benefit of our peer group community is that it allows you to build confidence as a leader. This is really becomes a place where you can go to school on yourself and on other people and build your own confidence. And you get a supportive community where you kind of get emotional support and I would say, build friends for life in that sense. And so, Sean, let's start with that whole building confidence aspect. Can you recall a dilemma that you overcame with your peer group's help that boosted your confidence?
For sure. I was, this must have been 2015 or maybe 2016, kind of coming out of the recession. Things were going great guns. We decided to do some development work. And if any of you have ever worked for large property development proprietors, you know that sometimes payments come slow, sometimes retainers are held, and it's very difficult to when you're in a massive growth phase to finance your operation on that work. And we had taken on a ton of development work strategically and somewhat out of fear, because we had just survived the 09 and 2010, and we were we did grow all the way through it, and we were trying to keep the party rolling. And so we took on these really large property development jobs. And anyways, I had traveled to Toronto to do a winter peer group trip, and I can remember vividly being in the barn of the host's property, and his wife had made like warm soup for us all, and we were just kind of sharing war stories, and we were in this barn, and I got a phone call, and this was during lunch. So I took the call, and it was from my office manager to let me know that a developer had fallen through with a very, very large payment. So I don't remember the size of our business at that time, but let's just say the payment was much needed in January to, make a couple payrolls and I don't know, probably pay some vendor bills. And so it was a big deal. It was a real gut punch. And I remember hanging up the phone and just kind of dying inside a little bit. And my first reaction was, oh, this is so embarrassing. How could I ever share this with anyone? I'm embarrassed that I've got this problem. and it's a cash flow problem. So, at various stages of growth, that could be the most terrifying as an owner. That's the thing that keeps you up at night. And so I shared it with the group. Immediately, people literally and figuratively put their hands around me and made me feel better. Everyone had similar problems, and everyone started pitching in their different tips for how to get past it. And, I think if I'd have been alone in my office, I probably would have had a little pity party followed by a freak out. And you would think, being thousands of miles from home and learning of that, you might even be more freaked out. But I was actually comforted by this group of men and women that had been through the same issues. They made me feel very confident that I was going to get past it, and that I was going to change my business model and not do that kind of work anymore. So I was never in that position again. And that's really kind of the mental shift was, okay, that's where I've been. Where are we headed? We're not going to go there again. And even getting tips for that on how to pivot. And of course, we pivoted successfully. I don't remember the steps we took to get out of that hole at that time, but we did. And no doubt it was because of the love and support that I received from that group. And, I definitely remember that being that one of those light bulb moments where I was like, okay, this is big. I'm not doing this alone. I'm walking with a group here.
Wow, that's a great share. The peer group really helps you build confidence moving forward. But the other side of that coin is just the emotional support and the meaningful relationships that you build in general with other landscape entrepreneurs. And these aren't people you're competing with in our peer group community. Now, we run multiple peer groups, right? So we have multiple peer groups. We even have a second in command peer group, which Sean happens to lead. And we have a second in command peer group where we're teaching and helping seconds in commands do their best work and how to kind of manage their boss. So we have that group. We have other peer groups with owners, but whatever group you're in is with non-competing peers. So you can be totally open, and we get very personal. We want you to live your best life. We want you to have your best business possible and live your best life. This is not work-life balance, but this is really, it's not like an either or and I'm balancing one with the other. It's getting the business to where I want it to be to fulfill my professional ambitions and my community obligations, maybe my obligations to my team. Each of you get to define it your own way. But it's also about living your best life. And I think Sean personally was able to give back to his peer group by being that example. When COVID hit, Sean had his company running more or less without him. Today, it's even more without him. But back then, he had reached a great level of delegation. And so he bought, and I'll let Sean fill in a couple of details in a second, but he bought a mobile home and he just put his family in that mobile home, and he traveled the country, still doing his job, checking in when needed to check in, but just took that opportunity to do a truly once in a lifetime family trip that had totally bonded him and his family, and his dad was on the trip with him too, I believe. And everyone in the peer group was just enamored. Everyone else had aha light bulbs for themselves. Look, if Sean can do this, we're similar companies, we can do this too. And again, everyone has their own definition of living your best life. And so I think we have to be careful not to say, I want to copy what that person's doing, but we want to be inspired by each other to follow our own dreams. Sean, you want to, I kind of told your story there for you. Anything you want to add to that?
Well, COVID was a unique opportunity where for most landscape contractors, we didn't have an issue with volume, right? So you had tons and tons of leads, more leads than you could probably ever get back to. Might have had some staffing woes, but you didn't have a sales woe. And when things really, broke loose and schools were shut down and the panic for landscaping was kind of over. Okay, we're going to be able to operate. Sales are going to be strong. Our trade is one of the few that's probably benefiting from the pandemic as far as consumer habits were concerned. We were in a great spot. We were fully staffed, a little overstaffed. We had a great sales team in place, fantastic controller managing my finances, and I had a second in command who was really in command of all of our production. And so I was in a position, I have 4 kids, all under the age of 12. So 2 years ago, they were even younger. And we were in a position where we wanted to take advantage of the fact that the kids weren't in school. They didn't have anywhere they needed to be. And because they were doing online learning, you could do it from anywhere. We just decided to hit the road. My wife and I both hadn't got to travel very much as children. And as young adults, we were building a landscape business, which kept me pretty grounded. And I just really wanted to get out and see the country and enjoy the time with the kids while they were little. And so we just did it. And I wasn't gone for 2 years. I had check-in points along the way, but we definitely lived our best life and made a ton of memories. And I was able to take my dad with us on quite a few of our adventures, which was a nice full circle moment because, just being from a broken home, he wasn't in a position to travel with me or take me places, but always wanted to. So I got to do it for him and take him with, and now he's more bonded, connected to the kids. So it was just such a great experience. We fell in love with the Rocky Mountains during our travels, and now that's sort of a destination that calls our names often. And so, yeah, it was just a really good experience. I think for my team, the experience on the flip side of that was, what do we got to do if he's gone? What do we need? Systems in place and people in place. And to be honest with you, some of our best months, as far as profitability goes, happened during that time and when I was gone. That says about me. But some of the most profitable all-star months happened during that time frame.
I don't think that's uncommon, Sean. When you get a good team with good systems, you get the owner out of the way, then the team can run.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to keep.
It was great fun to be. I mean, I remember walking on a beach one day and getting a call from one of my sales guys, and he was fired up because he had landed a very, very large account, maintenance account, very large maintenance account, $1 million maintenance account. And I was just so the feeling of joy and pride that I had in the work that he had done, and I didn't have anything to do with it. It was the best feeling in the world. And I know that it reverberated through the peer group. And while not everyone did what I was doing, that peer group now is probably our most vacationed, focused on fun group. And I got to think I had some influence on that. But professionally, it sort of forces you to think outside the box. What would our team need to be really successful if I'm not here? And those are the tools that we work on as well in our peer group community. Those are some of the things that we endeavor to give our members.
Well said. So far we've touched on 4 features and benefits here. We got 4 more to cover. The 5th one is accountability, which I'm calling it as a separate benefit or feature. I mean, it resonates throughout everything we do in our peer group, January to December. But we also do specific things to create that accountability. And so, everyone needs a boss, right? Whether it's God or your spouse or just your feeling of obligation to your team. But accountability at a high level is hard to get. And so that's what the peer group offers you, is a higher standard of accountability and a consistent standard of accountability to keep you on track to your goals and your commitment, and also accountability in the form of helping you push through an obstacle. So in that sense, it's like a backbone to help you work through an issue and keep moving forward on your own goals. And so we have different, like I said, different ways of creating that accountability. One thing we do is the trios we set up. It's basically a buddy system within our peer group. We create a sort of a micro group, a buddy system in the peer group. We call them trios. And that group keeps you accountable week to week in between the peer group meetings. And then in the peer group meetings, we also have systems to keep you accountable as well. So a lot of ways we keep you accountable. Sean, without getting into too much detail here, just share what it's like for you to be accountable to your peer group when you were an active member.
Well, I think, most of us are people that, if you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business, you're already accountable to your clients. You say you're going to get back to them, you do. You tell an employee that you're going to do something for them, you better do it, right? So you're kind of accustomed to that level of accountability. I think the bigger step is, and all of us likely have some personal pride that we don't want to say we're going to do something and not do it. And so when you're asked to commit to reviewing your financials twice a year with a group of peers, or you've committed to raising your prices, or any number of commitments that you've made, even strategic actions, you don't really want to come unprepared at that point. I personally, my experience was if I said I was going to raise my margin by 5% next year, I did everything in my power to show up that next meeting with, check it out, I did it. And I think that's really important when you chart a big strategy to have those touch points where someone can call you out. Hey, are you working on that? You said you were going to do that. And for me, that really drove, even if I procrastinated and I didn't do something, I know, shit, next month I got to talk to somebody. Man, I'm really going to make sure I get on it and get it done. And that accountability forced me to be ready every time. So I was accountable to myself. I was accountable to my peers. And I didn't want to let anybody down. And I think that really gave me the drive and the push I needed to move through big actions. And now looking back over 11 years, I can't even believe all the things we did. It was sort of like fearless. But it was because within that small group, I said I was going to do something. I wanted to do it.
Excellent. And so that's accountability. Let's shift to number 6, the 6th feature benefit, personal and professional growth. I've always said that your business will only grow as much as you grow. And yes, we work on a lot of tools and systems for the business to grow, but personally and professionally, we have to keep growing. And therefore we have to invest in ourselves, not only in our business and equipment and a new facility and marketing, right? You have to invest all that in your business. But if you don't invest in yourself, in your own personal growth, you're going to ultimately become that obstacle to your business or your department's growth if you're listening to this and you're a department manager. And a lot of that happens through just what Sean has talked about in terms of sharpening yourself against each other. But perhaps, Sean, you can talk to the group here about some personal growth you made by watching another specific member, Brandon, when he joined our group and how he operated.
Yeah. So, being surrounded by a group that was very similar in terms of entrepreneurs that had started, most of us were really good salespeople. So a lot of emotional intelligence, a lot of investment in making friends and being well liked and these sorts of things. And I don't know how many years ago, but we had a non-owner join our group, or a partial owner join our group.
Yeah.
And his role in the business had nothing to do with sales, had nothing to do with really touching people in any way. He was an integrator. And I hadn't yet really learned about the concept of who an integrator is and what they do for a business. And so this was my first exposure to, someone who was focused on facts, focused on managing by metrics, and who didn't laugh along with the group, but rather took notes and sort of intensely looked at everyone, and then didn't speak a lot, but when they did, it was really smart. And I was really taken back and enamored. And now I'm proud to say that, I look up to and am able to call that man a friend. And it's inspired me to sort of grow up my act too, and really focus on, aside from being a salesperson, also being kind of a fact leader, and not managing so much from gut instinct, but managing from data. And, I think the other big professional learn that I had from an integrator was just following methodical thought all the way through and not just acting fast. And I think a lot of visionaries, if they don't have an integrator, or they haven't scaled to the point where you can have both personalities in the business, could learn a lot from being around other people that have opposite skills, and, sort of the practice of slowing down, making a plan, sticking to the plan, and only allowing data to get you to deviate from what you're doing. And so it was a big personal and professional growth to be in and amongst that peer group member. And to this day, I'm always really excited to speak with him and find out what he's got going on now, and let that continue to influence me.
We actually, I'm sure he'll be happy I can mention his name, Brandon Lair. I did a podcast with him a year and a half, about Superforeman. And he's really been the leader, I'd say, in the industry on developing Superforeman. A little context, I guess I should have said it before Sean started speaking, but he basically is leading a team that's buying out the original owner, and he's the managing partner. But he's the guy that understands production inside and out as the managing partner of the group that's buying out this business. And so he's a natural integrator, but he's also the CEO of the business and the lead owner. And so, I'm sure if we had him on, he'd be sharing what he learned from you. In fact, maybe we should have him back on again on our podcast. I might do that. Sean, thanks for, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, having met with him just a few months ago, and we read the book Rocket Fuel as a peer group. And, he was actually on the flip side of that, admitting to all of us that he was starting to think about things from both perspectives, and that he was trying to work on more of dreaming ahead, because he'd become so efficient. They've achieved everything they set out to achieve. What's next is the new question. And there's no one driving that anymore but him. And so he in turn was learning from a lot of us, and the way that our minds are wired.
Yeah. Excellent. That's a great share. I always make jokes about Brandon because he's in Dayton, Ohio. And I'm like, the best landscaper in Dayton, Ohio. All right. Two more features / benefits. And these are both super important ones here. The seventh one is about collaboration. This is really a big chunk of what we do. You could call it problem solving. This is where you bring an issue to the group, and the group helps you peel the onion on the issue. There's always an underlying issue underneath the issue, right? You bring an issue and it's maybe a collection of symptoms, and you're wrestling with the issue. And so we have a format for peeling the onion and getting down to the core underlying issue. And then we help you solve that underlying issue. And then we give you solutions or multiple solutions where you can choose from, but you have clarity on what's really most important. And I remember years ago, back, Sean, when you were still just a member of the group, we had somebody join who he had brought on a partner. I don't know if it was 50-50. It was, I can't remember the split, but the partner was very weak, holding back the growth tremendously. And when he joined the group said, "Oh my God," like the group saw that he was in a bigger mess than he could kind of see from inside. Although he knew he was in a mess, but the group really made it black and white. Like, you've brought this person on as a partner. Now you got to undo this mess. And Sean, do you remember that? Without naming names, you want to share your memory of that?
I remember that. I'll probably never forget it because when he joined, the actual business was functioning very well. He didn't have cash flow problems. He didn't have profitability issues. In fact, the only thing hampering the business was, I think he was slow rolling his own success for fear that this looming issue with the weak partner was going to cost him more money down the road. And so he was kind of locked in this state of not wanting to grow the business and cost himself more money and buying out the partner, but also awkwardly not really dealing with the fact that the writing was on the wall. The partner wasn't really providing as much value as he was. I don't remember what their split was or the circumstance in which they became partners to begin with, but in his own head, it was something he had just kept sweeping under the rug. And as the business scaled, I think it was burning in the back of his mind that it was going to be a big problem. When he came to us, all of us unanimously were like, "Whoa, time out. You're doing all the work. You're making all the new investments and you're sandbagging your own business because you're afraid to mention to this guy that it's time for him to leave." And so we obviously encouraged him to break ties with the weak partner. He did that very swiftly. And I don't know the facts today on where he's at, but I'm confident that business doubled or tripled. And he is the sole owner, including the real estate that they had to untie. And he's even leveraged and gone into a couple other little facets that he wasn't in originally, which is stuff he wanted to do. He knew he was capable. He just needed to get mentally over the hurdle that all of us saw as a must do, not a maybe. And it gave him clarity.
Gave him clarity. So that's just one example of our collaborative problem solving. And it's a very specific example. We do this across the board, building your leadership team, hiring a sales manager, maybe firing an employee. How do I do it? I want to make this really big hire. I've never spent that much money on somebody. Starting a branch, all kinds of problems, all kinds of obstacles where you need help peeling the onion. And so that's really a major feature. And we've developed really specific systems to what I call peel the onion. The last feature and benefit, and maybe one of my favorites, is the benchmarking we do, comparing financial metrics between companies. We set up P&Ls so they're apples to apples. We set up rolling budgets. We show you how to not only set up and manage by your P&L, but actually how to use it as a tool within your company using our proprietary rolling budget we've created. We do a lot of benchmarking, not just at the P&L level, but at the divisional level, at the margin level, at the pricing level. We go deep, and we even get into non-financial benchmarking in terms of benefits and, software systems and really everything. And it's my favorite. I studied business. I earned my MBA, and I was shocked when I got out of business school and, years later, made my way back into the landscape world. And then as a consultant, I was like, man, I learned a lot, but still, I have so much to learn because our industry is complex. Don't let anybody fool you that this is not rocket science. this is definitely science. You've got to be scientific in your approach to benchmarking and managing a multi-division company. And so this is something we really lean on. We're not only about money, right? We spend a huge amount of time talking about people and issues and care and love and, community impact. But if you don't make money, the business doesn't work. They say the same thing about nonprofits. A nonprofit doesn't mean the nonprofit doesn't make money. It just means it has to spend the money it makes. And so, Sean, what's been your personal experience with benchmarking here? We just have a minute or so left, but what's one thing that comes to mind when I mention this as the ultimate, or at least the last feature / benefit of our peer group community?
Well, I think, it's kind of the cornerstone of your awareness, how to manage your business and make changes. If you don't know, if you're kind of stumbling around in a dark room, this is the flashlight that sort of leads the way, what you need to stop doing and start doing more of. And so when we benchmark and we break out different service sectors, and you kind of find out, what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? And it allows you to make fact-based decisions on how to improve, whether it's from price, whether it's you don't have enough volume, your overhead's out of whack. I mean, it just gives you so many tactical things that you can then go out into the world and improve upon and watch in real time as your financial success increases based on those moves. It's not gut instinct. It's comparable across formats because of the way that we are able to break out the numbers. And it's just, to me, it's the only way to know how you're doing, kind of in a race against yourself.
A race against yourself. Excellent. Yeah. And it's something we do constantly. So you can see your trends. You can see how you're doing compared to everybody else. Which numbers are you the leader? And there's pride in that. And then you're teaching others. But there's always going to be somewhere where you're not the leader, no matter how good you are. And who else is leading in that division or in that overhead level or in certain ratios? We also look at ratios and not just numbers. And so it's a place to be proud, and it's a place to learn, and it's another form of accountability. Talk is cheap, but numbers tell the truth, right? They don't lie. And so that's why it, as Sean said, it really underpins what we're doing here. So we just shared 8 features and benefits. I mean, we also have a larger community where we have larger community events where we bring peer group members together. And I won't go down the road on that because that's sort of the frosting on the cake where you can come to our peer group wide events. And one of those is even private. I never even promote it, but it's something we do behind the scenes where we have education and learning for our members. So a lot of other features, but these are the fundamental features. I would say in summary, people join for one of 4 to 5 reasons. They join because they want a better work-life structure. They want more discretionary time, or they join because they really want to transform their business. They're looking for transformational growth and getting there easier or more directly. Number 3, they may be looking for just relationship building with their peers. They don't want to be alone anymore. They're looking for some high-level relationships with other peers. The 4th reason is the benchmarking, right? They really want a better grasp on their numbers and how to manage by the numbers. And 5th, they want personal coaching, whether it's from the facilitator like Sean would do in the peer group, or they actually want to take me on as their coach and they want one-on-one coaching on top of the peer group experience. But those, in summary, are the reasons why someone's thinking about joining. And of course, for some, it might also be succession. That's more of once you get to a certain age and you're learning to think about succession and how to handle succession, then we deal with those issues as well all the time. And so if this interests you at all, go to my website, jeffreyscott.biz, go to the drop down on the Leaders Edge peer group, and you can fill in an application. It's a 2-step process for applying, and we'll meet with you and we'll walk you through your numbers and your issues, and kind of it's like a free consulting phone call in a way. And we show you where we think the opportunities are in your business, and then we can talk to you about which peer group you'd fit well into and how to get started in that.